Well, thinking that thumbnail was not easy, let me just tell you, and I read a lot this month. Hello beautiful bookworms, my name is Katarina and welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing my April wrap-up, which kind of doesn't look like it because the sky is really dark and you probably cannot see me or my books, but let's just hope that the lighting gets better. And yeah, so if you guys don't know, April was the month of the Owls Readathon, the magical readathon created by G from Bookworms, and I'm going to leave all the information down below. I hope that you guys participated. If not, try to participate because this is just so amazing, so awesome, and she outdid herself. And basically, for this month, my whole reading developed around the fact that I want to become an alchemist, and becoming an alchemist in the Owls that G created is one of the most difficult careers that you can go to in the Harry Potter sort of world, because basically you have to read all of the 12 prompts for the Owls, and then for your newts, which is going to be in August, by the way, if you don't know, you'll have to read pretty much 17 books, I believe. So it's hard, but I really want to get to it because for the next years or so, I won't be able to be reading as much. So I decided that I was going to go high and aim for The Alchemist. And look and behold, spoilers for this wrap up, I actually read 12 freaking books and I am so excited. So let's proceed to go each of the categories or each of the courses or each of the lessons that you had to take and what book I read for them and what I felt about them. So this is probably going to be a long video. Sorry about that, but just grab a cup of tea or something or some cookies and just get into it. Okay, so as I said, this is not in the order of which I read these books, but yes, in the order of the categories or in alphabetical order of the lessons that I had to take for this. So yeah, don't get confused, okay? Let's just roll. Okay, so the first book that I read, and sorry if you feel like the camera is doing like this because my shelves are really not getting along with the fact that I have so many books on them, but the first book that I read, or rather the first challenge that I have, is Ancient Runes, which was a retelling, and for that one I read Alice by Christina Henry. And Alice is basically a gory, amazing retelling of Alice in Wonderland. So this is basically about Alice, and she has a trip to Wonderland when she's small, and she comes back completely bloodied with half of her face cut off. She had some weird experiences that she can't talk about, and because of that reason, her parents put her into a mental hospital. And so we begin with Alice in a mental hospital, drugged of her fate, and just basically not knowing anything that happened to her, with lack of memory, which is a trope that can be well done or badly done, and I think in this one it was really well done. And she has her only friend, which is a dude that is on the next cell called the Hatcher, because he murdered several people with an axe, and we don't know why, but we will, and it's not fun, but it is pretty awesome. And basically this is sort of a gang story, so Wonderland is not exactly Wonderland, but all of the characters that you are used to, like the Rabbit, Cheshire. We can also discuss that Mad Hatter is in here, although this is a very sort of my theory, which could be wrong, I don't know, but I have that theory. All of the characters that you loved and learned about in Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass are represented in here. The caterpillar as well, all of them. And it's pretty amazing, but it has a lot of violence, especially against women, which when your main character is a woman, you sort of are obligated to see that even if you don't want to. So if you have any sort of trigger to blood, rape, violence against women, body mutilations, anything gory or horror trigger, you probably are not safe reading this. But I have to say that if you like sort of like, how do I explain this? If you like when people avert tropes and change stories that you already know whilst maintaining the same strange vibes of the stories, then Alice is totally for you. I love this book. It's a short book, 300 and something pages, and it was pretty cool for my Ancient Runes, and so I finished my first one, Ancient Runes. So the second category of the owls was Arrhythmia, which is a work written by more than one author. And for that one, I chose The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the omnibus edition by Alan Moore and Kevin O'Neill. Basically, from what I know, this is like the first League of Extraordinary Gentlemen stories, but then there's more of them. And I absolutely love this graphic novel. It was really fun. This is sort of a team made up from all of the characters, or most of the characters, that you know from vintage sort of classics, like Mina from Dracula, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Nemo from 2000 Leagues Under the Sea, The Invisible Man, all of these people, and this is basically a team that deals with threats to the English crown, and it's pretty awesome. It is, however, a very long graphic novel, which it's chunky, but you wouldn't think it will have so much time of reading, but it does, because obviously the parts that are graphic novel on their own, they are not as much time to read. You don't lose that much time to read. But then there's these parts that are like extra stories of the thing. And they are so big and they have so much text that you spend a lot of time reading this graphic novel. So it was actually a challenge for me to read this, and it was pretty fun. I was completely astonished with how much I like these characters. I love the way Alan Moore writes everything. He's just so great. And when I went to look at a picture of him, he just looks like one of those crazy cold dudes. But he's just so awesome. He has a way of writing. It's really sort of, I don't know, it's so great. I get engrossed in everything that he tells, and it's just great. And obviously, the art of this was amazing, and I really enjoyed The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And I've heard that the movie sucks, but maybe I want to watch it, like, I don't know. But this was really great. I really enjoyed this read. So next for the owls was my astronomy owl, and that is a book with star in the title. And for that one, I read Skyward, Claim the Stars by Brandon Sanderson. This was actually the last book that I read in April and the end of my owls. So it was the last course that I had to finish, and I finished it barely, but I did. And Skyward is the story of this girl named Spencer, and she basically lives in a planet that is targeted by aliens, the Krell, and the only line of defense between humans and those aliens are the pilots. And her dad was a pilot, but he supposedly was branded as coward in this epic battle that happened, because supposedly he flew away and left his fleet, and it had to be shot down and everything. So she's branded as the daughters of a coward, and so people do not want her to pilot and to be a pilot, but she wants to prove everyone wrong, and this is just so great. First of all, Brandon Sanderson is always amazing. And now that he's writing young adult, I feel like I've only read Mistborn, which is an adult novel, and I feel like the young adult of Brandon Sanderson is not exactly as young adult-ish as a lot of young adult we are used to read. But it is really great. I am a person that normally goes to fantasy, but not a lot to sci-fi. Sci-fi, I can watch movies and series, but not really actually reading sci-fi. But this one, he was describing ships and AIs and pilots and fighting with aliens, and I was so engrossed on it. Like, he's great. He writes such an amazing way that everything that he writes, you kind of want to read. So that's all I have to say. So far, so good. 3 books. Loving 3 books. Actually, I loved all of the 12 books that I read for this readathon, which is partially why I actually fulfilled all of the 12 prompts that I had to, because I loved all the books that I read, and that is great, actually. And also, if you haven't read Skyward, just give it a chance, because Skyward is very close to YA perfection. Really. Like, you don't have a romantic plot, which doesn't mean that I don't like romantic plots, but it wasn't there, so it didn't ruin sort of the main plot. It had plot twists, as Brandon Sanderson is used to give us, and it had a lot of, I don't know, character dynamics, and our main character actually developed from being a dum-dum and focused on stupid things to actually focusing on bigger things and development of the character in the first book in the series, which normally, if you've read young adult, it takes them a while to actually develop as they should. So if you want improved young adult, which by no means, believe me, with this conversation, I don't mean that I hate young adult, because I actually love young adult, and most of the things that I read are young adult fantasy or adult fantasy. But if you want an improved character development in young adult, Skyward, I mean, it was great. And the topic that it covers is actually pretty cool. Okay, so the next one was Care for Magical Creatures, and for that one I read Nevermore by Jessica Townsend, The Trials of Morrigan Crow, and this is a beautiful middle grade about Morrigan Crow, and she's supposed to die on her 11th birthday, but, well, because she's supposed to be cursed, but she's whisked away by Jupiter North, which is one of the greatest characters I've ever read about, to be honest, to Nevermore, a place where she can not only live, but learn how to integrate the society and be an important person and have what she never had, which is a family and people that love her. And this was so Harry Potter-esque in a way, but so different as well. It had a lot of trials, and we all love a great middle grade competition like Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Anyone, we love. And Morrigan Crow was so much fun, and all of the characters were so much fun. I loved every single character, even the supposed bad ones, and I'm not going to say anything about that because first of all, I haven't read the sequel, which is Wondersmith, which I have and I really want to read, and second of all, I really do not want to spoil you guys because Nevermore is great and you should pick it up and read it as soon as possible, because really I recommend this. If you read any of the books that I present to you, please read Nevermore because it's really great, and I read this in like a day. And it's big, so it's a great read. And there's a cat, a giant cat, which fulfills the prompt of a land animal on the cover for Care of Magical Creatures. So another one done, and yay! So for charms, I had 5 extra days to read a book, which is why I chose what I'm going to show to you guys. Well, if you've seen my TBR, you know what I've read, but whatever. But I did not use those 5 days because, coincidentally, those 5 days were the days where I had to actually make my PhD project presentation to try and get a scholarship to actually do a PhD. So I only start with 1 advantage day for this book, which was not what I wanted and almost jeopardized my entirety of my owls. But I did read and I did finish The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon by like the 3rd or 4th day of the owls, I don't know, but I did it. I read this monster, this beast for the charms, which was Ageline Read, an adult novel, by the way. And oh my god, this is an adult standalone fantasy. This is amazing, and I am starting to get really throat sore because I'm sort of sick with my allergies, so yay, I lasted 13 minutes of this video. But as I was saying, this is about dragons, this is about characters that are morally gray, this is about fantasy, high fantasy, amazing, and I love The Priory of the Orange Tree. I don't need to say anything else about this book because pretty much everyone and their mothers have been reading this between March and April, and even May, but whatever. So I don't really want to spoil you, but if you love high fantasy, this is probably one of the things that you should for sure read. This was great. I absolutely love The Priory of the Orange Tree. If I've read better high fantasy, yes, but if I've read better standalone books in fantasy novels, probably not. The Priory of the Orange Tree is really great. Granted, I have seen some people doing some reviews and saying some stuff that I personally do not agree with, but I can see where they're coming from. There are some parts that are really slow, there are some parts that are really quick, and the ending of the thing, the climax of the thing, might have been a little bit hurried for all of the time that it took to get there, but it had real consequences. People died in this book, which is not normal for a lot of authors to do nowadays. Like, authors do like to protect their darlings. They're not George R.R. Martin, and neither is Samantha Shannon. Like, she doesn't kill everyone in the world, but I believe that actions in this novel have indeed consequences, and if characters can get out of them, that's cool, but if characters cannot, They have to deal with them. And that's one of the things that I do love. It has a lot of character development, but it has some characters that you already know where they stand in the beginning and they don't need to develop more because it just don't, because they're already fully developed, if you know what I mean. So this was great. I really had a great time. I feel like I can reread this again one day, which is pretty great, because rereading something this size when you already know most of the plot, it should not be done if you did not enjoy the book. So this means that I did, and I hope that you guys that read it also enjoyed it. But if you did not, you are free to comment so in the comments. It's fine. I accept other opinions. It's okay. So next I read what pretty much is the shortest book that I read for this readathon, which was Defense Against the Dark Arts, and it is a title that starts with an R because our Defense Against the Dark Arts thingy was Reducto. So I read Ruby, Volume 4, I Burn, and this is basically part of an anthology. I have been telling you guys this pretty much every time that I pick these books up. If you have never watched the animation, not anime, beware, but animation, Ruby, you fucking should, because Ruby is amazing. It's sort of a twist in the magical girls sort of anime situation, but it is amazing. It's about these girls and they go to train to a school to become huntresses because their country is basically overwhelmed with green creatures, which are demon-like creatures, and they have to like kill them and progress. But then the plot gets so deep and stuff starts happening. Gods are getting into the mix, and there's a lot of talk about racism. There's a lot of talk about, you know, diversity, and it's just so great. And they have such great powers that they have to develop and cultivate, and it's just so great. And basically this fourth volume is, these volumes are all short stories, and if you've never watched the series, I do not recommend you to read these because they go on plot points of the series that you will not at all understand if you've never watched the series, because this is for the fans. It really is, and I'm not just being here like, oh, you cannot read this because I'm the one that knows about this. That's not it. This is really for the fans, and you will not understand it. So do yourself a favor and watch the series because it's great. And then if you want, you can read this. Also, this is about Yang, our Y, our last member of the crew, by no means less important than the other ones, and I love Yang. She's so fierce and so gorgeous, and I love all of them, but I don't know, just, they're just so cool. And I Burn is really very much Yang, and if you've watched that series, you fucking know what I mean. Then another manga for divination, which the prompt was set in the future, and I chose did I? What did I choose? Yeah, okay, I did. I chose Made in Abyss, and this one is by Akihito Tsukushi, and this is volume 5 of Made in Abyss. It's really, really short, but as always, it packed a punch in my face and destroyed me. By the end of this book, I was crying like a motherfucker. Like, for real, I had to put this down and I was like, why the fuck did you do this to me again? Because I have read 5 volumes of this, and I died every time. And if you think that's funny, it is not, because it consumes so much energy in me. But Made in Abyss is such a great story. Basically, this is about this girl, the society, actually, that lives near an abyss, and it has a lot of technology, which is why I chose it for set in the future sort of thing. And basically, this society has abyss hunters, and they go down and down and down, but the abyss has a problem. And if you go way deep into the abyss, you will not be able to come back alive because it has some physical and psychological situations that prevent you from coming up, so you suffer very much. And basically our main character's mother, she's a white whistle, so one of the most experts of the abyss. And basically she goes to her last dive into the end of the abyss to know what it is there. And basically our main character, and she's a little girl, like 7 years old or 8 or something, and she receives this letter that we don't know if it is from her mother or not, that says, I will meet you at the end of the abyss. And she is so small, and she knows she's not going to survive going down there and coming back up, but she goes down there because she's so brave. And oh my god, all of the things that happened to her, and I am not okay. Like, if you have any triggers about violence with little kids, do not go into this, because your heart will sink deep down into the abyss of despair. literally. But this is just so great. It's such a great story about loyalty, friendship, bravery, knowledge. It's just, ooh, and the things that knowledge does to you, how it changes you, and what sometimes you have to do to survive. It's just so great. I cannot. If you don't have any troubles with specific heartfelt things, read Made in Abyss, because best manga ever. I mean, not ever, but ever, you know? Next, for herbology, with a plant on the cover, I read The Promised Neverland Volume 8. And this is sort of like a dystopian... Oh, sorry. This is by Kai Shirai and Pasuka Demisyu. But this is basically a dystopian about these kids that are being inbred in an orphanage to be fed to demons. And when they find out, they try everything that they can to escape. And this volume was so amazing. Like, I was reading this and I was like, shit, finally they up this shit up a notch. And I cannot wait. Because the next volume is going to be amazing. And if it's not how I expect it to be, I'm just going to pick this up and throw it out of the window. No, I'm not, but I sort of wanted to sometimes. So this is what I read for herbology. As you can see, there's plants everywhere. And this was great. It was a great read. Now, for History of Magic, we have a book that was published at least 10 years ago. And for that one, I read Orlando by Virginia Woolf. And this is sort of an autobiographical, but not really, work of Virginia Woolf. And this is very hard to explain, but it does cover the topic of a man that suddenly is a woman. And the way that it's portrayed in here can be portrayed as fantasy, but at the same time, this is a very complex work in which Virginia Woolf tells you that you are not your gender at all. You can be a man or a woman or both inside of the same body. And that was really important, and I feel like very today-ish, very actual, very something that people should actually read and inform about. This was about the struggles of time passing, about the struggles of living, about the struggles of society, about the struggles that one has with oneself, independently of the sex that they are, the genre that they believe that they are. Beautiful. It was just amazing. And you could see a lot of the author in here, in these pages. And I felt like this is a book that you should read calmly and that you should think about. I could not read a lot of pages at once because I was always thinking about certain things that she said, and they were so important. There's a part in here that was really important to me when it was kind of through the end where Orlando, and she's now a girl, she starts calling out, like she's in her car and she starts saying Orlando, like, and she's calling out, and Virginia Woolf proceeds to tell you that she's calling out to all of the Orlandos inside of her, because in each and every situation of your life, you need a part of you, a very specific part of you, to deal with that situation, and the others cannot. And that might be why sometimes people that, like me, have anxiety, they cannot deal with such situations because they themselves are not the person that should be dealing with it. And the other person inside of the person, if you know what I mean, should come out and should deal with that situation, because we are not all the same. We are not equipped to deal with everything in the same way. And sometimes we create ourselves and we show ourselves in situations, in different situations. There's also a part where Virginia Woolf talks about Orlando dressing. And in this particular moment, Orlando is already a woman, but she dresses as a he at night because he wants to do masculine things. But she likes to change dresses sometimes. And those dresses, and Virginia Woolf does a thing where she talks about Orlando frequently changing dresses and suits some of the times, even though she's supposed to be a woman or he's supposed to be a man in some of the occasions, because everything that she or he dresses has a point. It's for certain things, is to build up a character inside of the person, to show what the person is in that moment. And that moment can change. And what a person is can, and by all means, should change compared to what they're going up against or what they're going to do. And it was it was just so great. If you've never read Orlando, first of all, you should read Virginia Woolf. Even if you're not going to read Orlando, just give Virginia Woolf a chance, because the way that she writes is just so melodramatic, but at the same time so aware of her time and all of the times that came before her and will come. She's a woman that was born ahead of her time, in my opinion, and she was just great. And all of the struggles that she has, you can identify them. Orlando is a very depressed character in a way, and it's just, you know that she died, or if you don't know, she died from depression. She committed suicide, and so you can see all of her struggles inside of this one character, and this is why this is called like a biographical sort of work by Virginia Woolf. And it was so great. I am so happy that I picked this up and I read this. And this is really short, so if you just want to, in sport, just read a book, pick this up, because this will make you feel different. I feel different right now, and I feel like some of the choices that I made in my life are actually cemented after reading this book. I don't know, it makes you think about a lot of things, but it also makes you certain about other things, if you know what I mean, which you probably don't, but I mean, I don't care. Then after that, I read my Model Studies book, which was a contemporary, and I chose Solanin by Inyo Asano, which is now one of my favorite mangakas. And yes, I'm saying this, and I only read one book by him, because Solanin, I thought I was not going to like this book. I thought it was going to be just a contemporary, but obviously I'm wrong, because I'm stupid, and I was actually throwing Japanese authors into the same pitch where we throw European and American authors, and obviously they are not the same, and I'm not being racist or anything, but Japanese authors have their way with feelings. They get to you, they fuck you up, and you enjoy it. Solanin was a trip. This is basically about this girl. She doesn't know what she wants to do with her life. She has a job she hates. She just graduated from college. She doesn't know what life is. She doesn't know if she wants freedom or if she is free. She doesn't know what she wants to do with her life. And basically it's about the dynamics with her friends, with her boyfriend, and how people can leave their marks on you. How sometimes some decisions that you feel like are not going to be the best, or that are not going to do anything for your life, change you dramatically. And how sometimes you have to do stuff that you never figure out you would do for yourself to be free, and what freedom is, and if you're ever truly free. And oh my god, am I getting emotional again? Like, did I cry reading Solanin? I did, and I want to read more of Asano's work, because Solanin, first of all, his art is beautiful, and oh my god, okay, I'm getting emotional, but his art is amazing, and the storytelling, the emotion, the characters, the development, it was so great. If you don't like contemporary, read this, because this is a type of contemporary that I could get behind and that I could say with all of my heart that I absolutely love. So for potions, we had to read a next ingredient, or rather a sequel, and I read Tokyo Ghoul Re Volume 9 by Suihishida, which is a sequel within a sequel. And you've all heard me talk about Tokyo Ghoul in this channel, so I'm not going to even. But obviously, if you haven't read the original Tokyo Ghoul series, you cannot, by the life of you, approach Tokyo Ghoul Re, because it is a direct consequence of Tokyo Ghoul, and you will understand zero. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not smart or that you're not smart, but believe me. But this was great. I was excited, as I wasn't since the beginning of the series, because then this went down the hill for some reason, and I was like, why? But it was great. There was a lot of action, there was a lot of beautiful illustrations, there was a lot of morality, gray morality actually, inserted in this. This was so great, and I really enjoyed it, but I will not spoil this, because Tokyo Ghoul is a thing that I would really love for you guys to read if you have a high tolerance to violence, gore, insides, and blood and other things. Okay, so, and then finally, this is almost half an hour, but finally the last book that I read for the Owls for my Transfiguration was a book with red on the cover, and I chose Red Queen by Christina Henry, which is obviously the continuation of Alice by Christina Henry. And yes, I did plan to read Alice first so I could read Red Queen after that, because I am that type of bitch. I do that. So Red Queen is a direct continuation of Alice. So if you have not read Alice, please do not venture into reading Red Queen, because there are going to be some references that you're not going to get. But Red Queen actually plays with the queens, the White Queen, the Red Queen that appear in Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. It plays with a lot more magic than the first one because yes, magic is a prevalent in this retelling because obviously Wonderland, you know? And it plays with other scary topics, and it is still very, very aggressive. It has a lot of blood, it has a lot of aggressive situations, cannibalism, other unpleasantries. You know, I don't need to, this is very triggerish. I don't need to tell you that at all, but I really did love the plot twist at the end. I was kind of getting there. I was like, could this possibly be? Because the book is almost finishing and I feel like this is going to be like this. And I was right, but I was still doubting myself. So if you like a cool plot twist, you should read Red Queen at all. If you like when people dismount your favorite sort of fairy tale and then mount it again differently but with the same vibe, Christina Henry is a master at doing that. I loved it. But it's extremely violent and gory. So we still have the same amount of violence, but this time through children and not through women. So if you cannot comport that, you should not read this. But yeah, it was a great read. So those are all of the 12 books that I read for the Owls. And oh my god, this was a gigantic wrap up because I read so much and I am so happy. And as you can see, I loved pretty much every single book that I read, which obviously helps you having a great reading month. So yeah, so that's going to be all for this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed. Please leave down below the books that you read in April, or if you know any of these books, or if you want to read them, you already know. Just talk to me. I love you. Conversate with me, you know? And yeah, that's going to be it for today. I cannot wait for the newts in August so I can have a bigger, better wrap up for you guys of 17 books, I hope. I do hope. Or else I'm going to be jobless in the Harry Potter world, which is not great. But yeah, that's going to be it for today, and happy readings to you all, guys. Bye!